Youmna ElSayed, a correspondent for Al Jazeera in the Gaza Strip. Youmna, welcome to Democracy Now! Please accept our condolences on the deaths of the family members of your colleague. Could you explain what you know about what happened and where exactly his family was killed?
First of all, Wael, like many of us, like thousands of Palestinians who got the order to evacuate from the north and from Gaza City to the south, heeded that order and moved his family to the south, to Nusayrat refugee camp. And when I say refugee camp, it means I'm talking about a very densely populated area with homes very much adjacent to one another. A place that just hosts thousands of homes and civilians and armed civilians. This is where Wael kept his family. In another home or a family home there, they were hosted. The entire family, his wife, his kids, his nephews, nieces, everyone. He stayed in Gaza City to report from Gaza City, where most of our crews had headed to the south to report from Khan Yunis in the south. But as you've seen, as the whole world has seen, the bombardments were relentless every single day in the south. When I say the south, I mean Khan Yunis in Rafah, for people who don't know. I mean Nusayrat, I mean Al-Brej. All these days since the evacuation order, not one day, not 1 hour, these places were not targeted. Homes were targeted. Hospitals were targeted. In these same areas that people were asked to evacuate. Hundreds of families who had evacuated from the north and from Gaza City were killed in those bombings. When we say there's no safe place in Gaza, we're not lying. We're not being biased. We're not exaggerating. The north, Gaza City, and the south, they're all just the same in terms of bombardment, in terms of targeting, and in all the life conditions. It doesn't mean that they're asking people to go to the south because there is a better life condition in the south. There's water in the south, or for example, there's electricity, or there's drinking water that you can buy, or you can find bread easily. I just want to ask one question. Why did they ask us to go to the south?
Youmna, earlier this week, the Israeli government approved, quote, emergency regulations that would close broadcasters thought to be acting against the, quote, security of the state. Is Al Jazeera the only network broadcasting live from Gaza? I mean, CNN has a reporter there. He files tape reports as he, too, with his children, is fleeing the bombardment. But in terms of the live stand-up reporting, is Al Jazeera alone?
Yes, it's Al Jazeera alone. And I want to ask, how does Israel or the United States describe Al Jazeera to be biased? Because they say this. They say that Al Jazeera is biased. They say that Al Jazeera should lower its tone on its coverage on Gaza. Why are we getting these orders? Is Al Jazeera showing something that is not happening? Is Al Jazeera filming a targeting or a bombing or those thousands that are being brought to the hospitals or hundreds that are being kept under the rubble or civil defense crews that dig with their hands and with no resources? Is this not a reality? Is Al Jazeera saying that there's no water and there's no electricity in Gaza, and there is? Is it saying that there are no networks in the mobile phones, and there are? Why are we getting these orders? We're getting these orders because we are broadcasting what we really see. We're neutral. We're not showing one part against the other. Didn't you hear Al Jazeera say that there were rockets launched from Gaza? Every time there are rockets launched from Gaza, don't our correspondents in Al Jazeera Arabic and Al Jazeera English say that there are dozens of rockets launched from Gaza? They hit places in Israeli towns. Sirens were heard. Injuries in Israeli towns were conducted. Don't we report that? We're not biased if we only report what is happening on the Israeli side, but we're biased when we report what is happening on the Palestinian side. Is this what we have learned in journalism schools around the world? Is this how we're supposed to be neutral and objective? Is this the image that we should give our audience who trust us?
Youmna, in 2021, Israel leveled a 12-story building in Gaza, housing the offices of Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and other media outlets. Israel justified the bombing by claiming Hamas had been using the building but offered no proof. Israel gave media workers inside advance warning of the attack, telling them they had just 1 hour to evacuate, refused to delay the airstrike when journalists begged for more time to recover personal items, cameras, and other equipment. The head of Al Jazeera called the attack a blatant violation of human rights and war crime. Associated Press said it had no evidence of Hamas operating the building. Last year, Israeli forces shot dead a Palestinian-American journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, as she was covering the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. Can you talk about what the calls are for the U.S. government, which provides so much of the funding of the Israeli military, to make demands now? They've been pushed into calling possibly for a pause. They're not calling for a ceasefire. But this issue of journalists and civilians dying in such large numbers. At this point, I think the number is 24 journalists, 3 Israelis, 20 Palestinians, and 1 Lebanese cameraman from Reuters.
In 2021, I had an interview on your show. It was on the phone. Maybe that's why you don't remember me. And I told you clearly that this was a targeting against journalism and against media. All media offices in the Gaza Strip in the 2021 were completely destroyed. All buildings hosting any media office, including Al Jazeera's and the AP's, were leveled to the ground. I survived a car accident, or let's say, I don't even want to say a car accident. It's not, because it was a targeting of another jihad, Islamic jihad wanted or something in a car, and he wasn't, by the way. They just assumed that he was, and I survived that targeting miraculously. I almost died in that attack. The United States claims to be a democratic state. It claims to respect all rights. It claims to be a civilized nation. What is the correct description of these words for the United States? What did the United States do when Shireen Abu Akleh was killed and she's a Palestinian American? Did they stand up for her? What did they do when our bureau and AP's bureau were bombed, when the AP is an American agency? And there was no proof of any Israeli claims until this day. We're in 2023. The United States, it's clear to the whole world, to you Americans, before any other nation, supports the benefits of Israel, despite all realities, despite all proofs, and despite any claim of democracy or rights. The United States only supports what Israel says. Even if the entire world sees that this is not the truth, it will continue standing next to it. And I can't respect a nation saying, or a government, I'm not going to talk about the American people because I know that not all governments represent their people. But how can I respect a government that sees all these violations and claims to be a supporter of human rights and democracy and stands still, not doing anything?
Youmna, I'd like to go to a clip of you live on the air on October 7th at the moment when Israel bombed a tower behind you in Gaza City.
All right. Youmna, please take cover. If you are in a position to do so safely, you can explain to us what we're happening. If you are not in a position to do so safely, then please get to safety.
No, it's okay. This is a missile attack on Palestine Tower, right in the middle of Gaza City.
Youmna, take a moment to breathe. Take a moment, you and your team. Take a moment to breathe.
So, Youmna,
okay?
that was on October 7th, the day, of course, that Hamas carried out its attack. So if you could describe the scene, what was the scene then in Gaza?
Can you believe that that missile that you saw in front of you was just a warning missile? This is how the people of Gaza get warned before they are completely bombarded. That strong and powerful bombardment that you saw in front of you was just a warning missile. I was standing normally. I didn't even feel that it was danger where we are. We're on the rooftop of our bureau. It's perfectly a safe place. We take safety precautions first because we don't want to risk our lives. We don't want to put our lives in danger. But can we, no matter how much precautions we take, can we push that danger and risk away? Was Wael able to protect his family? Am I able to protect my family? Is anyone in Gaza able to protect their families? We're not. We're under constant fire. We're under constant bombardment.
Youmna, we thank you so much for being with us. And yes, we do remember you from 2021 on the phone or when we can see you. Your reporting has been unforgettable. Youmna ElSayed is a correspondent for Al Jazeera, speaking to us from Gaza. Please be safe. And again, the condolences of our newsroom to your whole Al Jazeera family. Your last comment.
Yes, I just want to say one thing. I want to say this, and I want the world to remember my words. In my culture, in my language, we say, كما تدين تدان ولو بعد حين. In your culture, in your language, they say, what goes around comes around. And when it comes around, like this whole world is watching the genocides happening in the Gaza Strip, we shall be watching too.
Youmna ElSayed, thank you so much for joining us. Coming up, we go to Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, where we'll be joined by the longtime Palestinian diplomat and scholar, Hanan